Welcome to the final days. Today is December 2nd, 2019. Today we are going to see what's being hidden by all the atmospheric chemical spraying taking place. All of the images you are about to see were taken by the Alaskan and Canadian FAA weather cameras. These images are unedited except where obvious contrast is used to facilitate viewing of details. The purpose of this channel is to show viewers that we are living in the very last days according to the Holy Bible, and to explain why this is actually good news and cause for celebration. Explain later in this video. The south-facing weather camera located in Peawanuck, Ontario in Canada shows very heavy cloud cover intended to conceal a once rare sun halo, which is now an everyday occurrence that is kept mostly hidden by chemically induced cloud cover. This cloud cover allows the viewers to see the actual size of NASA's manufactured light, which creates a circular glare between the Earth and the Sun. The equipment that creates the circular glare casts a reflection upon the water surfaces, proving that it's an actual piece of equipment and not a lighting or camera issue. This black dot equipment is capable of producing a circular glare thousands of miles in diameter. Since it's relatively close to the Earth, it can appear much larger than our real sun. The enormous glare is very effective at engulfing nearby celestial objects in glare to conceal them from view. Untold trillions have been spent to hide this inbound planetary system from the unknowing masses. The reason for all the deception is because the enemies of Christ do not want you to know how close we are to the end, nor do they want you to turn your life over to Jesus while you still have time. Information is at the end of this video instructing you on how to accept Christ into your life. Here's another example of this engulfing glare, which we saw last year from the south-facing camera in Hoona, Alaska. As NASA's manufactured light approaches an enormous tan-colored object, it partially illuminates this celestial object. Thus, we know it can't be a lens flare, since lens flares cannot react to the object causing the lens flare. Jesus describes the last days in Luke chapter 21 verse 25 when he says that we will see signs in the sky when the end is near. As Christians, we are commanded to watch for these signs and wonders, signaling the end of the age, so that we are not ignorant of the very late hour in which we are living, and so that we can be spiritually prepared for what lies ahead and help others to become spiritually prepared also. Another location that is kept continually sprayed with atmospheric chemicals is Attawapaskat, Ontario in Canada. After a few frames, the sun appears to suddenly shrink down to 1/5 its previous size. This is because the real sun has gone behind an enormous structure between the Earth and the sun, and NASA's manufactured glare passes in front of this mammoth object. This object is no longer visible because it is kept cloud-covered daily. Here is what the atmospheric chemical spraying is attempting to hide daily. This footage was captured a few months ago in March. NASA's manufactured light actually illuminates the highly textured object behind it. We've been watching this textured object for over a year. It really doesn't move much, which suggests that it is matching our orbit or is in a geosynchronous orbit. This huge celestial object is yet another sign that we are living in the very last days. It's very common to see clear skies until the sun comes into view. Then the atmospheric chemical spraying becomes very heavy in order to obscure any celestial objects or anomalies that might otherwise be visible near the sun. There are an estimated 1,000 chemical spraying jets flying around the Earth at any one time. The chemical load for each jet costs an average of $500,000. This means that at any given moment, $50 million worth of chemicals are being sprayed into our atmosphere to hide what's coming, adding to our ridiculous and irreversible national debt of now over $23 trillion. Once again, the enemies of Christ do not want anyone knowing how close to the end we are. This approaching planetary system will be making its closest pass to Earth during the biblically foretold time of the Great Tribulation, which is described in detail in the Bible's book of Revelation. The camera at Big Trout Lake in Ontario shows a relatively clear sky until the sun appears, and it is covered with chemically induced clouds. The south-facing camera in Drumheller, Alberta, Canada, shows NASA's manufactured light passing behind a light post. However, one image has been removed from this footage. The image, taken at exactly 1750 Universal Time, is gone. Here are the images before and after the missing image. This image was removed so that the public cannot see NASA's manufactured light completely disappear behind the narrow light post. A year ago in March, this same camera captured NASA's manufactured light completely disappearing behind the tiny street light. Our real sun could never disappear behind a tiny street lamp. Or a thin flagpole. Or even a tiny bird feeder post. Only a very small light source could disappear behind such small objects. As mentioned previously, this tiny manufactured light is capable of producing an enormous glare. But on a cloudless day, that glare is often seen flashing. In only 10 minutes it changes from this to this. We saw a good example of this flashing sun in our March 6 video taken from the south-facing camera in Anchorage, Alaska, where the sun appears to be flashing wildly in a possible condition of malfunction. Of course, the flashing we see cannot possibly be produced by our real sun, or we would all be burnt to a crisp. The southeast-facing camera in Perryville, Alaska, captured 30 minutes of video where the sun actually dropped and then went back up. 3 different frames showing this. This is just another sign that we are living in the very last days. Here is footage from last year's Chikamish Canyon camera showing more of what's being hidden by the atmospheric chemicals. It's very difficult to see Chikamish Canyon now without atmospheric chemical coverage. This footage also demonstrates the technology in place to blur objects from view. As you can see, the blurring of a very, very large celestial orb successfully hides it from view. More of what's being hidden by the atmospheric chemicals was seen last year on the southwest-facing camera in Summit, Alaska. The footage begins with NASA's black dot equipment emitting a black beam in preparation for an eclipse. Here we see a very large tan-colored object and a smaller striped celestial object, both of which are going to eclipse the sun at the very same time. We know these cannot be lens flares of the sun because one of them is striped and our sun doesn't have stripes. The large tan orb is partially illuminated. Lens flares cannot become partially illuminated by the object creating the lens flare. Once again, NASA's light approaches these celestial objects and it attempts to engulf them in glare to conceal them from view. This causes the light source to become very contorted looking. Be thankful that this isn't the real sun enlarging to twice its size, or we would all be burnt to a crisp. NASA's manufactured light passes in front of these celestial objects as the real sun passes behind, so that it's not obvious a total solar eclipse is taking place. These solar eclipses are a daily event hidden from public view. Unknowing Bay is another area that's kept under constant cloud cover, especially the southeastern skies. The reason is because it's easy to view celestial objects from this area. I was actually contacted by a pilot who flies the far north, including the Unknowing Bay area. He told me that what I'm showing in these videos is very real, and that he and other pilots see these frequently. The pilots are silenced by signing non-disclosure agreements before they take the job. They can be imprisoned for talking about what they see in the skies. Here we see the black beam being emitted in preparation for an eclipse. NASA's manufactured light passes in front of the celestial object, while the real sun goes behind it, concealing the total solar eclipse. This is just another sign of the last days, described by Jesus throughout the Gospels in the Bible. Back when the Alaskan skies were clear, this footage shows a separate celestial object near the setting sun. Look at the object and in the water. You can see that this small object is casting its own separate reflection in the water. The southwest-facing camera in Haines, Alaska, shows two separate light sources in the sky. And as we move through this footage, we see NASA's manufactured light above engulfing the lower object in glare in an attempt to conceal it from view. Once again, this causes a very contorted shaped light. Some of you may have seen this pair of celestial orbs from the northwest-facing camera in Tok, Alaska. One orb is striped and rotating. Near the end of the footage, a smaller red object fades into view. And some contrast helps to be able to see the details better. A pillar of light was viewed from the west-facing camera in Gulkana, Alaska. The east-facing camera in Old Harbor, Alaska, shows a round object partially hidden behind the clouds, so we know this can't be a lens flare because a camera-produced lens flare can never go behind clouds or other structures in a photo. It appears to have faint stripes if you look real closely. This is another sign that we're living in the last days. The south-facing camera in Marshall, Alaska, shows a large red orb near the horizon. The images with contrast make it obvious that this object is rotating. Lens flares of the sun cannot rotate, and we can also see craters in it. If your screen has good enough contrast, you'll see the craters, and lens flares of the sun don't have craters. The west-facing camera in chalky Itzik, Alaska, shows a celestial object behind the clouds. And as the footage moves on, it does go behind the electrical lines also. Here's an interesting one from the east-facing camera in St. Mary's, Alaska. There is a very heavily textured object near the top right corner of the screen. And when we zoom in on this object, it sort of looks like brain coral. Just another sign that we're living in the last days. As mentioned previously, this inbound planetary system will be making its closest pass to Earth during the Great Tribulation. But all of this is actually good news and cause for celebration, because Jesus has promised to remove his faithful followers from Earth before God's wrath is unleashed upon the earth. This is commonly called the rapture, which will take place quickly and quietly. The New King James Version of Luke chapter 21 verse 36 reads, "Watch therefore, and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass." Jesus is referring to God's wrath. He is saying that those who are counted worthy will escape all of God's wrath. The Bible repeatedly promises that faithful followers of Christ are not appointed to God's wrath. And to be counted worthy, we must be living in holiness. A link in the description box below discusses what holiness is and how to achieve it. Your eternal soul was sent into this world, into a temporary flesh body, in order to learn how to love Christ and live according to that love. This is the only reason you are here. The next few screens will tell you how to accept Christ into your life in the event you are seeking him. Simply pause the screens if you need more time to read the text.